Okay, am I rolling? Yeah, it looks like I'm rolling. Okay, I'm going to position this a little bit different. I don't know. I don't know if that's better. I wasn't sure if it made sense to have the windshield included. Oh, maybe that's better. Okay, so I'm now leaving Whole Foods parking lot after my lunch hour. Yeah. And so there's a lot of ways to approach this question of, am I lonely? You know, it's funny because a lot has changed. Like, maybe I ought to just launch into a recap, to the best of my ability, of my relationship with Amy, and see. Because so much has changed since I kind of opened my heart in the context and to Amy, because it was beyond just her. I became open to the idea of God, yeah. There's, you know what? I think I might just have to start at the beginning and do my best, because this is like a little bit raw still, but that will create a context for answering the question, am I lonely? Because I think I had some walls up before that, kind of different philosophies supporting these walls, that caused me to look at loneliness kind of in a different way. So, what was my philosophy? My philosophy before was, I want to have heart connections with lots of people. I did, sort of. But, and I was sort of entertained by the potential that I felt in several relationships, but I wasn't really pursuing the fulfillment of the potential. I was kind of an emotional, like, womanizer. Is that the word? I wasn't like messing with people's minds. I wasn't even taking anything really beyond friendship, and basically what it was I would have relationships with people, and I would basically leave all the question of sexuality up to her. And just kind of, like, for example, Naomi came out, we had a great time. There definitely were situations that could be considered sort of sensual, suggestive, and things like that, but I just never pushed it. I was never out for for getting laid, really. And, but it was sort of there, too. It was sort of like the elephant in the room. And somehow, for a period, and I think my divorce plays into this too, is that I wasn't, I think that might have been my subconscious way of protecting my heart, by just sort of, I don't know. So right around this time, I'm on Tinder. It's a funny place if you think about Tinder's reputation to be, if you're looking to make friends, right? But I was, with openness to other things, I would always probably say, but so here comes Amy, just full of enthusiasm, like very just present, and I thought she was cute right away. We started talking about, we realized that we frequent the same place called Hidden Villa. I was talking to her about how I was planning to go to Big Sur, because by that time Naomi was going to be visiting for a week. She rattled off a bunch of places to camp that she liked. We talked about music. She gave me some names of different bands that she liked. And within a couple of days, it was like, hey, let's talk on the phone. So we did. And but here was this thing, Naomi and I kind of were hitting it off too in our own way. My brother separately had kind of tried to set us up, so it seemed like there was some potential there. I didn't know her at all, really. I mean, the moral of that story, and I think a lot of this, it kind of comes down to you can have a fantasy person. At least for me, maybe there are times when everything just hits on all cylinders. You meet somebody, say online, like I did Naomi, and but I was still kind of playing by the same rules with her. I think. I don't know if I specifically limited it, because sometimes when something exists in your brain, it seems like, let's suspend the rules and see where things go. At that time, for me, the rules were, I like to have friends. I don't even like that word, but I like to have a heart connection with people. And it's not a codependent thing. It's not something that's going to necessarily look like boyfriend, girlfriend, marriage, and all of that. To a certain degree, what I still believe about that is that, people should kind of be able to define their own lives. That they don't necessarily have to sleep in the same bed every single night, or even cohabitate if they don't want to, But what I have discovered through all of this is that through trial and error, a lot of error and a lot of pain, that I want a connection that's deeper. And I don't see how you get the connection, the kind of intense connection with a person, without being focused on them solely. And that's what I want. And I was kind of hoping for that with multiple people, and thinking that maybe by taking my libido and the traditional male role of the instigator of sexual encounters out of it. Now, granted, I don't particularly buy into that role, meaning in the sense that I'm expecting a passive woman that's going to wait around for me to make a move physically, or override her and overrule her hesitance, call her bluff, and so on and so forth. But I have learned a lot about trying to register my desire through tenderness and caring, which I really hadn't been doing. Like, I wasn't really expressing any interest when I felt like I was getting maybe a little closer. If there was potential in a relationship, what I would do is I just kind of say, this is how I do it, I leave it up to the queen so that it's a non-issue. Basically, I was putting myself in the position of like the gay male, basically saying, hey, I'll be your buddy. And I don't really care for a lot of expectations and a lot of heaviness about it, but I do think that, I guess, rather than a sexual tension model which is kind of the standard of I know what you want and you're not going to get it, or I know what you want and if you ask me in just the right way you're going to get it, and all of that. I want like more of a communication model and more something that's based on a connection and mutual caring and meeting the other halfway. So I'm kind of evolved into that, and I think there's room for having a muse. I think there's room for obsessing a little bit in that. I think there's room for I don't know how to describe, but more a kind of, I don't know. I derive inspiration from people, and especially Amy. I'll get into I'll get into more of that later. But here I am just sort of rambling, and that's the point, I guess, to just let the words flow and see what comes out of it. But so I kind of cut to the chase, and I've kind of given away the punchline, which is that I went from a friend's, sex isn't a factor unless she makes it a factor, to friends, and yes, I'm open to focusing on just one person, and I'm open to my own sexuality, but not in a way that oppresses, and not in a way that depends on someone else as being passive. A legendary womanizer told me the other day, women never pursue men. Well, that's not true. I was pursued by my very first love, and it was wonderful. And that it really spoiled me in the sense that I look for the queen to make her wishes known. But I'm also much more open to make my wishes known, and to maybe draw the queen out if she's used to being very passive. Through communication and things like that, more direct, without making myself as the physical dominator in that process. And that's a huge turnoff to some people, who kind of expect that. They want that sort of hotness of the beast there, the animal, and that's good for them, great, and that's biology, I guess, right? In a certain sense, but I'm looking for women who transcend biology, and I think that's anyway. That's what's most attractive to me. So that's sort of cutting to the chase, like I said, but I can get into more of the details of how somebody a little more passive, like Amy, sort of drew that out of me, just as I over time, over these 11 months or so, became more and more interested in her, but rather coyly let her know of my interest, without really showing her, and without really taking the time to get in touch with my own feelings, and to kind of honor that and act from that, and just how it fucked my life up pretty bad. Not really, it's not that dramatic, but there was a lot of pain, and there is a lot of pain in being separate from her, because of how it kind of handled my heart. It finally just cracking open with love for her, and how that's isolated us. Isolated me from her through my actions. Not uncomfortable for her, maybe, what, but, and I may go into some of the details, some of the conversations that we've had, just for the sake of sharing, but that will do for now. Alright, thanks.